Did you know that the Nazis actually went searching for the Holy Grail and many other mythical and mystical objects that they believed held a significant amount of power? The Nazis, and in particular the head of the SS, Heinrich Himmler, were obsessed with the occult. They wanted to back up their claims about the Aryan race by possessing a number of important objects which they believed would give them further power. Heinrich Himmler even set up a group known as the Ahnennerber, which translates to ancestral heritage, and these were like the bad guys on Indiana Jones films, who were searching for some of the world's most brilliant items and artefacts in an attempt to justify the power of the Nazi race. They conducted archaeological digs and also went on expeditions to even search for lost cities, and at the end of the war, much of their paperwork was destroyed to not incriminate them in war crimes trials. But today we look at strange mythical objects searched for by the Nazis. Welcome to the Untold Past. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Let's begin with one of the biggest treasures searched for throughout the centuries, the Holy Grail. As an artefact, the Holy Grail is a treasure that has an incredibly pivotal and important role in history. It's described as a cup that holds miraculous healing powers, or may even provide eternal youth, and is allegedly hidden inside of a Grail castle. However, the Holy Grail is most commonly attributed to being the vessel or cup that Jesus Christ drank from during the Last Supper, or the cup that Joseph of Arimathea used to catch the blood of Jesus following his crucifixion. This cup is of course incredibly important to the story of Christianity, and there have been a number of locations attributed to the Holy Grail, even including the town of Glastonbury in Somerset in England, which has been attributed as a resting place of King Arthur. But one Nazi who was paid by Heinrich Himmler to search for the Holy Grail was Otto Rahn, a German medievalist and member of the SS, as well as a Grail hunter. He had a belief that the Cathars, a Christian sect, had possession of important treasures such as the Holy Grail, and he believed that the Grail Castle was the Cathar Castle at Montségur. Rahn travelled to southern France and the ruins of Cathar castles to search for the Grail, and at one point the search ended as he was sued for being out of money and was accused of spying for the Germans. He had become friends with Heinrich Himmler, and the pair bonded over their shared interest in the occult, and Himmler helped Rahn out in his search for the Grail, and Himmler even helped him publish his book titled Crusade Against the Grail, the struggle between the Cathars, the Templars and the Church of Rome. He continued to develop his theories on the Grail, and continued to search in France, Italy and even Iceland, as he believed there were further wonders connected that he could find. His search for the Grail was not successful, but his books were very popular. It was Himmler who was bankrolling Otto Rahn's search for the Holy Grail, but he was taken away from his search as he was forced to perform guard duties inside of Buchenwald and Dachau concentration camps. But he then died whilst hiking, with his body being found in a ravine. Himmler himself did embark on his own mission to find the Grail in 1940, as he went to an abbey in the Montserrat region of Catalonia. He was led there as he believed that Montserrat was the location of the Grail in an opera written by Hitler's favourite composer Wagner. This opera, Parsifal, is based on a medieval German poem, and Himmler on his quest came out empty-handed. Of course the Holy Grail has yet to be found, but the Nazis did continue to search for it, and they wanted possession of this item, similarly to the plot of a very famous Hollywood film. Heinrich Himmler was obsessed by the idea of possessing immense power, and he believed that the Holy Grail could give him this. But he also believed in another artefact, Thor's Hammer. Mjolnir is the hammer of the thunder god Thor, and the story emerges in Norse mythology that it is a devastating and brutal weapon, as well as a divine instrument used to provide blessings to people. The hammer has developed as a symbol linked to Norse mythology, and it has been worn on necklaces and as pendants by many people even during the Viking raids, when the Northmen rampaged throughout different settlements. But Himmler would, in May 1940, order the Ahnennerber to search for Thor's hammer. In a letter to the group he wrote, "Have the following researched. Find all places in the northern Germanic Aryan cultural world where an understanding of the lightning bolt, the thunderbolt, Thor's hammer, or the flying or thrown hammer exists, in addition to all the sculptures of the god depicted with a small hand axe emitting lightning. Please collect all of the pictorial, sculptural, written, and mythological evidence of this. I am convinced that this is not based on natural thunder or lightning, but rather that it is an early, highly developed form of a war weapon of our forefathers, which was only, of course, possessed by the Aesir, the gods, and that it implies an unheard knowledge of electricity. Himmler believed that possessing Thor's hammer could have been pivotal use for the German war effort, and he believed he could use this to knock out whole armies and tanks and other military equipment, and he believed with it the Aryan race could prevail and the German war effort succeed against anyone. It's not known if the Ahnenerbe found any evidence with regards to Thor's hammer, and Himmler believed that the hammer was an early developed weapon of the Nazi forefathers, meaning the Aryans. He believed the team should be searching all over the world to find such a weapon that could bring such power to the Nazi cause. Despite not really being a mythical object and item, the Beo Tapestry was of importance and interest to the Ahnenerbe group, as they wanted to seize control of the 900-year-old tapestry. The Beo Tapestry is a 70-metre long piece of work that depicts the events leading up to the Norman conquest of England, and then the Battle of Hastings, with William the Conqueror being successful and defeating Harold Godwinson to take the throne of England. This today is still seen as a brilliant historical document, despite the fact it may have been, most probably, a piece of Norman propaganda, but the Ahnenerbe wanted to have it as part of its large archive. They managed to take it too, as in June 1941, the staff of the group oversaw its transport from its home in Beo Cathedral to an abbey, Jouet-Monde, before it was then moved on to the Château de Sourches. But following the liberation of Paris by the Allies and the French resistance in August 1944, 2 members of the SS were sent to Paris to retrieve the tapestry, which had been placed in the basement of the Louvre Art Gallery. However, the SS men defied Himmler's orders, as they knew that the region was heavily populated with members of the French resistance, and they decided to leave the tapestry, fearing for their lives. One item that Adolf Hitler was obsessed with was the Spear of Destiny. This was a spear that pierced the sides of Jesus Christ when he was on the crucifix or the cross, and Hitler, when he lived in Vienna as a young man, began to look around the Austrian museums. One day he viewed an exhibit in the Hofburg Museum, which he claimed changed his life. He saw the Holy Lance, which was a prized part of the Habsburgs' treasure. When he was in his 20s, Hitler then met with a philosopher, an expert on the occult, named Walter Stein, and Stein thought Hitler was obsessed to one day wield great power, and during their conversations, Hitler stated that the Holy Lance was key to his future power. He stated that one day when he was looking at the lance, he had an out-of-body experience where he envisioned his future power. Within a few decades, Hitler himself would be addressing huge groups of people in Austria and Vienna, as he was about to annex the nation and take over the country, making it part of his Reich and empire. One of the first orders Hitler gave for his forces was to enter the Hofburg Museum, and to then take the Holy Lance for the Nazis and for Hitler. As he possessed what he thought was the Holy Lance that inflicted wounds on Christ, Hitler believed he had all the power he now needed to take over the world. But one thing to consider is that there have been a number of other Holy Lances that have emerged throughout the years. The one in Vienna, displayed in the Hofburg Palace, has been dated to have been from the 8th century, meaning that it was in fact too late to have been the weapon that inflicted the wounds on Christ. But one iron pin on the lance was said to have been consistent with a 1st century Roman nail, meaning that if this was the lance, then only a small part of it may have been used. Despite this, experts have ruled out that it dates back to the 1st century AD, when Jesus died on the cross. But shockingly, the spear Hitler had was buried underneath Nuremberg fortress, and it was discovered on the day that Hitler shot himself in his Berlin bunker. It was recovered along with other treasures, and then these were returned to the museum in Vienna, including the spear. Despite not being a mythical item, the Nazis also began to search for the Lost City of Atlantis. The project was led by Hermann Wirth, and later was taken over by Himmler, and the search lasted for much of Hitler's time in power. Wirth did not believe that Atlantis, the underwater city, but instead he thought it was in the North Atlantic. In his opinion, Atlantis was a civilization that reached its height 25,000 years before, and it was the birthplace of the Nordic race and the Aryan people. Nazis then began to accept this as truth, and in 1939 Himmler began an effort with the Ahnenerbe, an elite SS archaeologists, scientists and historians, to search for Atlantis and proof of the Aryans being from there. Himmler wanted to prove that Aryans descended from Atlantis, and this enthralled him. He was the biggest supporter of the discoveries by the Nazis that backed up their links to history and heritage, but in a turn of events, some Nazi experts began to believe that the sinking of Atlantis led the people and descendants of Atlantis to higher places, avoiding the sea that terrorised and ruined their civilization. With this, the Nazis then searched in Tibet, and during an expedition, they collected thousands of specimens of local people. They analysed facial features and measured the heads of many people, claiming they could use this to determine race. They even claimed that they found out what happened to Atlantis and were convinced that Tibetans were the survivors of the Lost City, and Himmler decided that the Aryan race had been weakened because of different breeding throughout the years. One German SS commander, Edmund Kiss, even promoted the idea that a Bolivian historical site, Tiwanaku, was in fact Atlantis. So there you have it, strange mythical and mystical items and places that the Nazis went searching for. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.